Very much. So this is how this is going to work. My name is Peter Knight. We're going to try and get a good buzz going here, and we want you to participate in this as much as possible. We have a panel of four eminent people who are going to come up, and they're going to tell us who they are, and they're going to give us a little story about extend some of the stories that Ken spoke about. And we're going to get some sort of practical application for data and how it can do good. So big data, big good. That's what we're going to explore. But we'd really like your participation in this. And we're going to have a short panel discussion. And we're not going to go to questions at the end. We're going to go to questions immediately. So if you have something to say, if you would like to ask a question, please put up your hand and we'll try and get to you. They're roving microphones. But to start this off, we would like everyone to look under their chair. And we hope you don't find banker's bubblegum. But if you find a piece of paper stuck under your chair, do you think you could pull that out?
On the left side.
On the left side of the chair. And if you find a piece of paper, could you pull that out and stand up, please? There are 6 pieces of paper. Right. Could you stand up when you have your piece of paper, please? Right. Okay, we have 1, 2. Anyone on the right hand? 3. Do we have to? Could you stand up, please? If you have a piece of paper that you found under your chair, could you stand up? So we should have 3 down here. Right, great. We got 3. Do we have 3 down this side? 1, 2, 3. Great. Okay. They have numbers on, and we would like, starting from number 1, if you could wait for the microphone to come to you, and could you please read out what is on your sheet of paper? We're going to build a little story quite quickly. And could you tell us who you are, sir?
Hi, my name's Tim Francis. I work for a film company, and I'm in charge of digital. Every day we create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. A quintillion is 1 followed by 18 zeros.
Great, thank you. Number 2.
Hi, my name's Kat Eames. I work for the Greater London Authority. And my statement is 90% of the data in the world was created in the past 2 years.
Thank you. Number 3, a microphone for number 3, please.
Hello, I'm James Singleton, representing CleanWeb. My fact is 439 million mobile phones were bought last year, and global mobile traffic grew by 69% in a year.
Thank you. So that was number
3.
So number 4, please.
Hi, I'm Ian Lane. I work for the University of the Arts London. And this says 2.5 billion people live in abject poverty. That's about 315 cities the size of London.
Thank you. And the next one, sir.
My name is Philip Veery. I work for a venture capital firm called EcoMachines Ventures. And my fact is 85% of the world's poor have access to a mobile phone.
Thank you. And the final one.
My name is Victoria Chapello and I work for Morgan Stanley. And my one is, can big data help lift the poor from poverty?
Thank you. Great. So we have a little story here. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating and looking under your chair. So we have a little story here. And this is our segue into inviting Sally Fuller from Vodafone up onto the stage. So what we're going to do is we have 4 panelists. Sally, could you come and stand here? And we're going to talk briefly to the panelists. They're going to tell us a little story about what their company does and what they do. And we're going to retire to our minimalist stage over here. No comfy chairs today because there's no sleeping allowed. So, and then we'll gather the panel. We're going to have a little chat after that. And at that point, please hands up because we would like to get you involved. So Sally, tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Sally Fuller. I'm from Vodafone. I run the product team for all the global customers. So running across about 197 countries, I think. The UK is just one of them. And relatively new to Vodafone. And actually, I joined Vodafone partly because of all the conversations we're having today. So we've got about 400 million mobile customers across the globe. It's one of the things we do. One of the things that we try and do with it is good things. So
great.
Very pleased to be here.
So what is a product of Vodafone? What do you call a product?
Well, mobile telephony is a product, voice usage on the mobile is a product, an application onto a mobile phone is a product. and SMS is a product, but also data networks, contact centres, unified comms.
Great.
So
Okay.
for our corporate customers, everything that helps our customers connect, but also everything that helps them collaborate or engage.
Right. Okay, so you're going to tell us about a product now.
I am.
And that is?
So I'm going to talk about a product called M-Pesa. So M stands for mobile, and Pesa is actually means money in Swahili. So this is something that was born in 2007. So if you cast your mind back, I think Gordon Brown had just taken over. Tesla had been released. I think the iPhone was released. So it was an exciting year. But also the other thing that had occurred within Vodafone is that 70% of the population in some of the key markets we operated in Africa had a phone. That was good. So they were connected. They were in these categories. But the same 70% did not have a bank account. So the opportunity was there a way to use that mobile phone to help those people have a bank account? And M-Pesa was invented, a mobile wallet was invented. And the need was that these people couldn't trade, they couldn't build a credit history, they couldn't expand out of poverty. So if they were producing too much, they couldn't sell it, or if they could sell it, they couldn't put the money anywhere, or they couldn't collect the money safely, and they could never cycle their business or their skill up. So that a lot of people were not able to get out of the situation they were in. They were not able to trade their way out of it, or to expand their way out of it, or sell their skills. So what M-Pesa did is we built a network, an application to go on a mobile phone, a mobile wallet, but we also built a network of distributors to effectively take cash from people and in exchange give them credits into their mobile wallet. So what that allowed them to do is to then go and buy goods from someone else by transacting through that mobile wallet, through a PIN card exchange basically. That allowed them to buy raw materials, to do production, but it also allowed them, when they'd sold those goods and services, to obviously collect payment, so effectively doing it outside the cash environment. So that effectively allowed people to trade, but more importantly, from a data point of view, it actually allowed them to build up a credit history. It allowed them to build up a payment record, a trading record, which effectively allowed them to buy more goods and services, to reproduce. It allowed them to build up bigger businesses. It allowed them to build up a better trading pattern. So that effectively created many, many, many expansions of people's wealth. It created many greater trading. It created it in a safe environment. But also, obviously, behind that, there's fraud and there's analytics, and there's quite a lot of other data as well, which has helped a number of the economies to come up. So if we look at M-Pesa today, we have nearly 17 million active users. It's in about 10 countries now. It's growing at about 83% a year. If you go to Kenya alone, 30% of the GDP of Kenya is now traded through this. So it is spectacularly successful. The scale of it is absolutely incredible. And the best form of flattery for the scale of a product like that is other people copy it. So they copied us in Africa, and if you look at Visa now, they're probably the market leader in Africa. And to me, the reason why I like the story is it's a great story of need, where you're marrying up some innovation and some application development, some clever mobile and clever data analysis with a need that has it. But also that the side product, which he hadn't actually anticipated, was that the data that was generated would create that credit history, and it would spiral into something greater. And we hadn't actually planned for that, but that's actually become some of the most significant value of it.
Great, that's wonderful. So the gathering of all that data is now going to be beneficial to what they call closing the sort of financial inclusion gap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're bringing in the unbanked in effect.
Right.
So.
Great. Sally, thank you very much. We'll have time to discuss this. Sally's going to stand at our, they call these poser tables, by the way, in the catalogue. She's going to be the... Yeah, very UK. Great. Well, thank you very much, Sally. Now can we welcome Anne Iwasenko? I'm getting close. I'm getting this name so wrong. It's going to be Anne who's going to... She's from Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. And could you please pronounce your surname properly?
Sure. It's Iwasesko.
Iwasesko.
And I'm still with HP.
And you're still with HP. Okay, can you just briefly describe that? So HP is split.
Yeah, so HP announced its separation that will come into place on November 1st of this year. And we're splitting into two Fortune 50 companies. One, HP Inc. will focus on our personal systems and printers. And Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, which is the company I'll be going to, will focus on our big data, mobility, cloud, and security solutions. So really providing the solutions for the enterprise.
Great. So you're in the right company for the right discussion. Thank you. You're going to tell us about conservation and big data?
Yeah, so the story I want to tell today is how we're using our big data solutions to address some of the critical issues in tropical rainforests. And in short, it's a collaboration with Conservation International, which enables us to create almost like an early warning system for threatened species. Earth Insights is the name of the collaboration, and it capitalizes on our HP data, big data solutions to increase dramatically the accuracy and speed of the research being done on biodiversity by Conservation International and other partners. And importantly, it also brings to life in a very user-friendly, near real-time way analytics that can be literally brought to the hands of decision makers who impact the forests around the world. The Earth Insights focuses on 275 species along with associated vegetation and so on. And it almost is like monitoring the vital signs of our forests. And using camera traps, about 1,000 in 17 tropical forests around the world, along with
camera traps, these are things stuck
these
in the
are
tree.
exactly
Something walks past.
heat and movement sensitive, along with climate sensors, about just over 100 climate sensors. And so what that adds up to is around 3 terabytes of information, which I understand, I'm told, is a lot, which includes over 2 million photos of these 275 species, along with 4 million climate measurements. And of course, these numbers are increasing every day.
Right. So Conservation International, you feed them this data, and are they? Where's the expertise in terms of analyzing the data and deciding what to do about it?
Yeah, well, it's really a collaboration. So Conservation International and team, a partnership, were already capturing the data. So they already had the camera traps set up and the sensors. But what they were struggling with was analyzing the data and making use of it. They were always looking in the rearview mirror. They had 20 to 30 scientists plugging away on simulations over a 6-month period, and so they could never anticipate what was going to happen. And by the time they figured anything out, it was considered outdated. So this really helped, again, dramatically increase the speed of the analysis and the accuracy.
And is HP donating all this computer power necessary to analyze all those terabytes? Is that the deal?
Yeah, so we have a number of software platforms that deals with big data, as well as the associated security issues. And we leverage this for the partnership, as well as bringing our expertise to bear. So for example, there is an open platform called Wildlife Picture Index, which is a platform that enables us to upload the Earth Insights data, as well as to provide some bird's eye views of some of the analytics and insights that are provided. And it's open for scientists, general public, organizations to use, with the exception of certain very sensitive data around endangered species locations and sightings that we don't.
So how much hope is there? Because I know the Brazilians are using satellite data to monitor the forest. Enormous amount going on in the conservation. How much hope is there that this data would really lead to change, say, in poaching, in terms of forest preservation, that type of thing?
Well, it's early days in the partnership, but already we have results that 14% of the 275 species are declining or are likely to decline using probabilities and simulations, which is a lot. And we've already seen policymakers in Peru, for example, use the information that they've gleaned from the analysis of comparing the park on the Peruvian side Panama, sorry, with Costa Rica, and they can see differences in the levels of animals. And so it really comes down to understanding what are the policy implications and what the different countries are doing differently. So we see that there. We see there's an example in Uganda where we are monitoring certain animals, and what they're seeing is a decline in cat populations because of ecotourism. And so again, using the data for actual decision making around the parks.
Great. Okay, so it really depends on how you make your decisions around the data that you're given, which is the difficult part. But
That's the critical part.
great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get on to that later. Thank you very much, Anne. Now we're going to welcome the token man onto our panel, Robert Frost from GSK. Robert had just come back from vacation in Portugal, looking rather relaxed and brown. Robert, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, so GlaxoSmithKline, we're a science-led global healthcare company with the bold mission of helping people do more, feel better, and live longer. And we do that by researching, manufacturing, and making available a broad range of medicines, vaccines, and consumer healthcare products.
Right. And what's your job there?
So I work in medical policy, and we oversee how the ethical conduct, essentially, of our research. So things like informed consent, patient safety, and how we make our research results available to the outside world.
Right. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight, how you make all this data available. And GSK created quite a thing, didn't they, when they declared that they were going to open up some of their research data to the rest of the research community.
Yeah.
Please tell us about that.
So that's a project I've been working on for the last couple of years. Many of you may have heard of Ben Goldacre's book, Bad Pharma, which has done a good job of holding the industry to account on issues of trial transparency. Now, actually, at GSK, our commitment to this area has been quite long-standing. We've had a public website since about 2004, which provides summary results of all of our trials, but that's aggregated data, and there's just under 6,000 result summaries there. Now, that's useful and important, but it's not what researchers need to conduct further research that's going to benefit medical science. So we took a journey really from going from that public website to a new system through which researchers can request access to the underlying data to conduct further research. Now, I think the reasons this hadn't been done before, and we were the first pharmaceutical company to do this, I think there were some concerns around commercial sensitivity. Now, personally, we don't buy that. We've taken the view that if there are more eyes on the data, that can only be a good thing. If someone finds a side effect that we're not aware of, that's good for us and it's good for patients. So we put that to one side. I think the legitimate concerns have been around patient privacy and how we protect the data. So at any one point, we'll be running around 400 clinical trials. That's data from around 300,000 volunteers or patients. That's millions and millions of data points. And we need to provide that data in a way that protects privacy. And I think the third concern is around how do we ensure that the data is put to appropriate use for good science. So we took a first step in May 2013 and launched a system through which researchers can request access to the underlying data. We now have an independent review panel that review those requests for data that's being run by the Wellcome Trust. And the data are then accessed in a secure portal where the researchers conduct their analysis.
So somebody from AstraZeneca can ask if they can have access to your data, and you'll give it to them?
They absolutely could. They would put their request to the independent panel, and they would do an assessment of the scientific rationale. But we have not specifically said it's closed for other companies. In practice, that's not what we've seen happen. So the system now runs with 12 pharmaceutical companies. We've seen over 100 research proposals, and to date, the independent panel have only turned down around 6 of those. And what we're seeing are requests from academics all over the world, finding novel uses of the underlying data. And to Ken's sort of point at the start, this is new stuff. Some of it's better, some of it's different. People finding incredible uses of GSK trial data that in the past would have just sat in a cupboard, honestly. You know, we'd have conducted our analysis, there'd have been a certain amount of reuse around that particular area, but that would have been the end of it. There's a great example of a trial that we'd done looking on polio vaccines. And people wanting to conduct a new trial in that area. And the best way to design that trial is look at what's happened in the past. And what they need to do is make sure that they protect patient safety. And I say the best way of doing that is looking at the frequency of what we call serious adverse events. So simply by gaining access to the GSK trial data from a large polio trial we'd done in Latin America, they can look at the frequency of what they'd expect to happen. That allows them to design a better trial, protect the patients, and do something different and better than was done before.
Right, so it's making better use of the data, using it more efficiently. And I know you're not involved in this directly, but there's a project called Genome England, which is collecting information from us when we go to the NHS and they collect our data. They're sharing this data, anonymized, but they're sharing it with people like you know, or your researchers, somebody in a white coat. What are the benefits of that, and how will that help us all lead healthier lives?
Yeah, so that's much further upstream. That's about how do we get better at finding the right targets. And that's something we need to get better at, because typically 90% of the compounds that we start working on won't end up being developed into new medicines. So that project is about sequencing the DNA of 100,000 patients and their families, people with rare diseases and rare forms of cancer, to better understand which bits of the DNA are responsible for the disease, which then highlights certain parts that are good targets for medicines. So that's going to help us in terms of being able to better target medicines. It's going to help patients, and it's going to reduce costs, which they can be passed on to the patients and the healthcare systems.
Right. Win, win, win. Thank you very much. Thank you, Robert. And our fourth panelist tonight is Emma Prest. Emma. And Emma is from a slightly different angle on this, not corporate.
No.
Not corporate. Emma, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm the General Manager of DataKind UK. We are the UK chapter of DataKind, which is a non-profit that brings data science to the third sector. DataKind is based out of New York. It started about 4 years ago. It's now popping up all over the world. We have chapters in DC, San Francisco, Dublin, Singapore, Bangalore, and obviously the UK. And the general idea behind it is, what if you took data scientists and the data science skill sets that top companies have access to and made it available to charities and nonprofits? How much could they improve their internal operations? How much could they make a better impact? And how much could they improve society? And we do all of our work, all this direct support with charities, through volunteer data scientists. So we've tapped into a slightly bizarre phenomenon, which is that data scientists want to volunteer. I may be the only person in London who has more data scientists I know what to do with. So there's a huge appetite to do this stuff, and we run these kind of data for good projects.
Right. Now, there's a thing in the data world called a hackathon. Okay, and you have your own hackathons, do you? I mean, I've seen a video of you with a lot of German people having a hackathon. Yes. What is a hackathon, and how can you use it to do good?
Right. So we call our hackathons data dives, and we like to think they're far superior and more successful than normal hackathons. So instead of producing an app, which is what normally it's loads of coders who come together for a whole weekend, they don't sleep or shower or anything, they just code the whole weekend. At the end, they produce an app that shows you, where your nearest parking space is, or how you can get the cheapest pizza, or some other useless thing. So what we try to do is bring 3 or 4 charities into a room for a weekend with kind of well-defined data problems and 100 data scientists. We shut them all in the room together, and the idea is more, it's creative chaos, but it's to produce insights in that data, to slice and dice that data in new ways, and to show the charities what it's possible to do with their own data.
Right, okay. Now you've got a story to tell us about the benefits of DataKind.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you one specific example of a piece of work that we worked on. It was with a non-profit called Give Directly. So Give Directly are somewhat controversial. Their approach to poverty alleviation is not to give a poor family a goat or teach them computer skills. It's just to give them money. They actually use M-Pesa technology to do this. So they're working in Kenya and Uganda. And they're actually really impressive. So there's a lot of evidence supporting the approach they take. It shows that They give something like, I think it's something like $1,000 an annual salary to a very poor family in a rural village in Kenya. When they go back and check up on them years later, they find that those families haven't spent that money on, booze and fags. They spent it on investing in their children. Their children are better nourished. They stay in school longer. They're better educated. They invest in small companies. Heads of households are more likely to earn significant more than when the project started. They're very impressive. And one of the things they pride themselves on is their efficiency. So every dollar that's given to Give Directly, 90 cents goes to the beneficiary. So they have very small overheads. And it was this kind of drive for efficiency when they came to DataKind, because they said the part of their process that's so time-consuming is identifying those villages which are the poorest, which are the neediest. Because we're talking about rural Africa. There isn't public open data to a granular enough level that can show you the household incomes. So what they were doing was they have teams of people that go village by village, knocking on doors, surveying people, trying to work out who the poorest are, where the poorest communities are. And one of the ways they are verifying these results was using satellite imagery. So it's all about roofing. This whole project is about roofing. Thatched roofs compared to metal roofs. So if a family has a metal roof, it's likely to be wealthier than if they have a thatched roof. You can use open data, Google satellite imagery to tell whether villages have thatched roofs or metal roofs. So DataKind came along, got 2 of our data science volunteers who have full-time jobs in the private sector. They spent 4 months in their spare time working with Give Directly, used WYSI data science things, machine learning and image processing, and created an algorithm that could show Give Directly where the poorest villages were. It could show the proportion of metal roofs compared to thatched roofs in a district. And this was fairly revolutionary for Give Directly. It saved them 100 days in staff time. They used this algorithm in February to spend $4 million, giving this money directly to poor villages in Kenya. We're reworking the algorithm somewhat because it turns out the world's a little bit messier than you often think, and families often have a mixture of buildings with, metal roofs and thatched roofs. So we're in the next phase of the project. But in general, it's a lovely example of what it's possible and the astonishing potential for using new data sources such as satellite imagery, for bringing in pro bono data science, spend a few months, and to save a charity a lot of time and a lot of money so they can do what they do better and give more money directly.
Great, wonderful story. In the video that I saw of you, you were talking about working with a women's group in Delhi, I think it was, or somewhere in India, helping them to use data better to get their message across. Could you just talk to us briefly about how you do that and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot, just generally around NGOs like to write 60-page reports and aren't necessarily the best at communicating things succinctly. So just doing fairly simple data visualizations can really change how they work, and helping them also to kind of make their message more succinct that could be told in a series of an infographic or something like that is really important. So we help them to do WYSI algorithms or to analyze data in new ways, but we also help them to think through how to then communicate that.
Great. Okay, well, Emma, thank you so much for DataKind. So now we know about DataKind, we know about what 3 corporations are doing. I'm going to invite Ken back up onto the stage with great energy, Ken, yes. Bound up onto the stage. And and could you join our panel over here?
Great.
And Ken, anything you've heard from those 4 stories that fill you with inspiration and excite you?
Yeah, I mean, well, all of it is extraordinary. In particular, the final thing, I think the idea of the metal versus thatched roof, using the open data by Google, just the satellite images, understanding that a machine learning algorithm, you don't need a human being, you could try to crowdsource it, hard to do, but a machine learning algorithm, if you just design it well, can actually get you far up the field. Then actually having to go back in time to realize that there's lots of other mistakes, it's a messy world. All of that, I think, points to the direction where things are headed. It would be great if more companies were to take their data and make it available, not only for their own purposes, right? Google's not doing it to improve search, right? But for outsiders to run analyses of and try to extract new forms of value on it.